Hello and welcome to the Python for Absolute Beginners series. And in this part of the series, we have two quizzes planned. They're supposed to check how we've been learning Python so far. We have two quizzes, and the quizzes are the first one is an even or odd number checker, and the second one is supposed to be, let's say, a grading system. We're going to talk more about it after we are done with the first one. So, a grading system, sorry. Let's just comment these two out. Just hold down the control key and press the slash. And for the even or odd number checker, the first thing you're going to do is to take an input from the user now, from the user, and then check if the input is even or odd, and finally display it to the console. Let's comment all this and start with it. So to take an input from the user, first we already talked about this. We use the input function, and in the input function we type whatever we want to type. So let's say enter a number, and then we are going to store whatever the person gives us back into a variable called number. And as you already know, the input function is going to return everything as a string, so we have to turn it into an integer. For now, we are not going to be worried about if the person enters, let's say a, turning it into an integer is going to give an error. So we are just going to assume the person enters a correct value. We'll be talking more about error handling later in this course. So let's just assume everything the person enters is correct. So next is just to check if the number is even or odd. The first thing, how to know whether a number is even or odd, as we all know, is to just divide the number by 2. If the number gives us 1, then it's odd, and if the number gives us 0, then it's even. To check the number of a division, as we already talked about in this series, we use the modulo sign, the percentage sign. So we check if the number modulus 2, so it means if the number divided by 2 and the result is equal to 0, so this means the number is even. So we're just going to print even. So just use the else, as we already know if the if statement fails, it just defaults to the else. So if it's not 0, obviously it's going to be 1. So we're going to print odd. And that's it. We are done. Just simple as this. So if you run this, it's going to ask us to enter a number. I type 3, it says odd, and for readability, let me just give space over, sorry, a space here to separate everything. So let me clear the console and try again. So if I run this and I input 100, you can see the number is even. So we are done, and let's go on with the grading system. So I'm first going to play this, and over here for the grading system, we are going to take a grade from the user. And when I say grade, I don't mean B, C or something. I just mean the actual grade the person got in terms of percentage. So let's say 75 out of 100, 80, 20, etc. First, we are going to check which grade person had. And in this case, this is how we want the grading to be. If you have 80 and above, so let's say 80 and above, not above, so 80 and above, this is going to be an A. So if I have 70 to 79, this is going to be a B, and if I have no, just a B, and if I have 60 to 69, and that's going to be a C, and anything else just a C, and anything else is a fail. A fail. So now let me just comment all of this, and finally display it to the console. So I'm not going to delete this. So let's start. First, you're going to have a variable called number, or let me say grade, that takes care of the grade, or that stores the grade the person gives us. And as usual, we're going to turn it into an integer since it returns a string. So we're going to use the input function to ask enter your grade, space over here for readability. And then the next thing is to check if the grade is greater than or equal to 80, right? The grade is greater than or equal to 80. We're going to print you had an A. So I can copy all of this and then go into the elif part to check if the grade is, in this case I'm going to check greater than or equal to 70. Going to have this, you had a B, not an AB, a B. I'm going to go to the elif. We already talked about this in the previous video. So if the grade is greater than or equal to 69, so in this case we're going to have this, had a C, and finally everything else is going to be a D. You had a D. So if I run this, it's first going to take the input, convert it to an integer and store it in grade, check if grade is greater than 80. Or you guys don't need to worry about this since it checks if the grade is greater than 80, and if that's true, it just goes out of the loop. It doesn't really check. Someone thinks maybe if I enter 100, since 100 is greater than 80, is going to print A, and is greater than 70 is going to print B. As we already discussed, the if statement, once a condition is met, it just breaks out. So it first checks if the number is greater than 80, and if no, it goes to check greater than 70 and print a B. If no, so it gets to the else statement. So if I run this and I put 50 space, I had a D, and I said everything else is a fail, so this you had an F. Clear this, and when I run this again, and let me put 69, this is a C, so clear. So what if I run this and put something like 101? Says I got an A, but 101 is not supposed to be a valid value. And since we said if anything greater than 80 should print an A, well, 101 is also greater than 80, so it's going to print an A for that. But meanwhile, that's not what we want. So since we already talked about the concept of nesting if statement, we first have to use that concept over here. First, you have to check if the grade is greater than or equal to 0. So which means we are not putting any value less than 0, like -1. And also, the grade happens to be less than or equal to 100. So we are not passing 100. We are in the valid range. Then we're going to indent this over here. So this checks for an if statement, and then we are nesting this if statement in the bigger if statement. So in this case, if the number is not a valid number, that is, if the number is less than 0 or the number is greater than 100, we're going to go into the else statement over here. We're going to say number is invalid. Let me use grade instead of number. Let me say the grade is invalid. So in this case, when I run this again, and I put like 101, it says the grade is invalid. And when I put in negative 1, so it says the grade is invalid. That's all I have for this video, and thank you. Hope I meet you in the next video.